Hello, this is Arcades, and welcome to another tips and tricks build video here on Stormworks Build and Rescue. And I thought I'd let you know about there's a few logic pieces that have unusual circumstances, and they are not available in the microcontroller. Well, at least most of them. You can replicate their effect in the microcontroller, but the exact pieces that I'm going to show you here are not available in the microcontroller. So, hope you like what you watch. I hope you enjoy what you see. If you do, remember to like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think. Helps out the channel immensely. And yeah, let's check these out. Okay, so what do we have here? I've got a little display of various blocks that are that they have unique effects and are not available in the microcontroller. Like, so when you want to make logic and you can go to the microcontroller and you can make the various things and, you know, put it down and such. Well, these are, and I'm going to put in like asterisk, not available in the microcontroller. There's a few of these, like the up-down counter. They have their own version of it there. These are slightly different than ones that are in the microcontroller. They don't operate exactly the same. Some have a equivalent in the microcontroller, like say the inverter and this exponent. Those two can be replicated inside the function block in the microcontroller. And even this one, the trig block, that can be, you know, replicated in the microcontroller. Now, the delay one, this ping pong one, and this counter, they're not in the microcontroller. So these are ones that don't have some sort of representative in the microcontroller that you can replicate. But you could find ways to replicate them. Now, I might go back later and find ones that are unique to the microcontroller. Let me know if you think that, if you'd like to hear about that or not. Yeah, we're going to cover the ones that are unique to the blocks. So, yeah. Okay, so I went ahead and came here into the workbench, and I'm going to take a look at each of the parts, read off the descriptions. We're going to take a look at them, talk about them real quick. And then we'll go outside and do an example of each one and how they operate. Now, the first one we got here is the counter block. And you can see, a counter which measures with a set speed, stores and constantly outputs a value which increases by an input amount. So, by theory, whatever you give it as a number, it counts in that direction. It has two logic points. It has the input for the speed by the count rises, and its output, which goes to your display. Or, you know, whatever receiving thing needs it to do its job. Now, the next part is the exponent. Output is raised to the power of a selected exponent. The exponents can be changed by selecting this component within the select tool. So, as you can see, it has like an x to the x power icon on it. You come in here, you can select it. You put in your exponent value, which we're squaring for the most part right now. Has two logic points, the input and the output, obviously. And it says the input, it says the number to exponate. I hope I said that correctly. And its output. Now, the next one we have, and this one is actually a little odd that they don't have this straight up in the microcontroller, but we have the numerical inverter. Now, if you've been making wheels and such, trying to make a steerable vehicle, you know how the wheels are, and you use this. Everybody, most of everybody should know about the numerical inverter due to the steering wheels, or trying to get wheels to steer. You need one to make sure your wheels properly steer. But it says the inverter takes a number as an input and multiplies it by -1 and outputs the result. So, and as I said before, we have an output and an input. As you see, I got a keypad here for the demonstration, and it just says the number that will be inverted. And in the case of inversion, it's basically saying if you give it a positive number, it's going to turn it into a negative number, and if you give it a negative number, it's going to turn it into a positive. Now, this is more unique blocks. The next one. This is the trigonometry block. provides a set of basic trigonometry functions. The available functions are sine, cosine, tangent, arcsine, arccosine, arctangent. If an invalid number is input, the output will be 0. Sine, cosine, tangent, except inputs measured in turns. A sine, a cosine, and a tangent output values measured in turns. The function can be set by selecting this component with the select tool. So as you can see, we have the output, which I have on the display here. We have the input number. Now, unlike going straight to here, I thought it would actually be useful to put something that actually uses said turns, which you have the robotic pivots, and even the velocity pivots, the big ones, they output your current rotation, and they put it in turns. So I use this to put the output into the input, and this will actually give you a usable number through whether you selected. If you come in here, use your select tool, you got your function, and you have all of them listed here. I'm just leaving it on sine, which is default, and then it will output a number based on that. So it gives you it in radians, so you can use that to further go down the systems and all that you need to go. Now, the next one, this one's an interesting one. This is the counter ping pong. A counter which oscillates between -1 and +1 with a set speed. It has two inputs, or two logic points, an output and input, a speed input for how fast you want it to go, and the actual output that changes its value. This one is very interesting. This is probably one of the most useful blocks that I use logic-wise that's not in the microcontroller. And it actually comes in handy for like the oil stuff. At least that's where I've used it. Okay, now we're getting into one of the few only like red logics, like your on-off logics that aren't in there. You can replicate this in the microcontrollers, but yeah, this is the delay block. This component stores an input on-off signal, then outputs it after a delay. This delay time can be configured by selecting the component with the select tool. The internal delay timer is reset whenever the input changes. So if you come up here to your select tool, you come up here and you select a delay timer. Now this can be mimicked in the microcontroller, I believe, using capacitor to a certain degree, but something about this block, it just works necessarily like when. So whatever action is taken, it takes that action after the delay. And I will get into demonstration later. So the thing is, if you turn the light on and you got it set for 2 seconds like I have here, it's going to take 2 seconds before it turns on. When you let go of the button or turn it off, it will stay lit. It will, like, say for example, I have a light here. So I press the button to turn on the light. And I got the thing set for 2 seconds. So it will take 2 seconds for that light to turn on. And then when I turn it off, turn the button off, it takes 2 seconds for that light to turn off. I like it. It's simple. It gets the job done. And they don't exactly have the same, like, the delay. I think there's a blinker block that kind of does the same thing. And there's also the capacitor that can kind of do the same thing too. I think the capacitor is probably the more equivalent replacement, but yeah. Okay, and then this one's kind of an honorable mention in my opinion, because it does have it has the up-down counter in the thing, but they kind of work a little differently because of how they're set up to be programmed. So we have the up-down. This component uses two on-off signals to move an internal value between -1 and 1. The up input moves the value upwards towards 1, and the down input moves it towards -1. This component can be used for converting on-off button presses into a standard number value that can be used to control any mechanical components that accept a standard numerical number input. And as you can see, now I have 4 of them here because when you go to here, you have a min value, max value, and a start value. That's kind of, you know, reminiscent of the throttles. But then up here has a sensitivity. I always like to relate them to the seats. Like they have, because of the sensitivity. They work kind of like the seat does. The seats, how can I put this? Like, so when you set the sensitivity of like the seats, that's how much it's adding to its output each time the game processes a tick. So it's going to go 0.1, 0.1, it's going to go plus 0.1, plus 0.1, plus 0.1, plus 0.1. Well, the same thing's here. You set the sensitivity 10%, it's going to create an interval based on that. So I've got the first one set for 10%, the second one's for 25, third one is 0.5, and the last one, as you can see, I got it for 100%. So, I'm going to go in here. I got this buttons here connected to each one, and this should show the difference between the sensitivities. So, when I just tap one, these will all go up by the same interval. And so you'll get to see the difference of how that sensitivity affects each one. Okay, that should be pretty much all the players that I'm going to be looking at this time. And, yeah, so let's take a look at these. Okay, first up, we have the counter block. Now, as you can see, I'm just doing this, and it just goes up. It counts. Now I add speed to it. You can see, it just keeps going. We go to full speed, but I keep bringing it down. Whoops. And that's straightforward. That's all it does. So you can use this to find various ways to, like, you know, control a rate of movement or counting. I don't know. It has its applications, but this is if you need to, like, create a measurement of something, like, say, how long something gets in. My only problem with it is it doesn't reset. That's the thing. It doesn't reset, so take it for what it's worth there. Next one. We have the exponent. Now, this one is set for 2, so basically we're squaring whatever we have. I set this to a maximum of 10, so as we go up, it's just squaring whatever you have put in there, all the way up to 10. As you can see, 10 times 10 is 100, so it's a pretty straightforward piece. Like I said, this can be replicated in a function block. So, and then manipulate it beyond there. And if you remember my last video, I was talking about the function block. So, yeah, you can use that to go in there. Then we have the numerical inverter. And this one is also, again, straightforward. I just put in 1 into the keypad, -1, or I put in -2. You can see it comes out 2. Again, this can be replicated in the function block just by doing, like, say, -x. Doing a function block and then typing in -x, that's an inverter. So, alright, next we have the trig one. This one is probably more useful if you're not wanting to go into the setting up the function block. Again, this can be replicated in the function block. It literally had, my last video I showed, it had an entire section over the equations replicating trig in the microcontroller. Well, this you don't have to set up anything other than saying what value you wanted to convert the turns number into. The output on, like, the robotic pivot, that outputs as turns. So you can use that, go into here, to convert here. As you can see, it's sitting on current rotation of 0. The moment I go turn this, you'll see it'll be starting to put out a value. And then this number will be used, and that'll be the radian. So it converts it all And if you want to use arcs, you would take that number to convert it back around to turn into a turns, which, yeah. Which you could actually put into something else and it would match it, but that's a long, complicated process, and you would have to know what you want to do with your trig stuff to figure that out and such. So for the time being, that's just at least how you use it to get a number from it. Here we have the counter ping pong. As you can see, we have a speed here. It will be going from 1 to 0 to 1 to 0 to 1 to 0 to 1. That's how it works. Okay, so it goes to -1, 0, 1, 0, -1, 0, 1. Sorry, that was on me. But as you can see, it just goes back and forth, and your sensitivity, or your speed, will determine how fast it goes through that. Go all the way up to speed of 1. Now, as I said before, you could use this for the oil jacks. I didn't want to use my primary example because it kind of looked a little odd, and I decided to instead use this. But you could use it for like the pistons to move the jack on the pump jack up and down through a combination of pieces. My oil rig, my drilling platform, uses that to operate the pump jack. Okay, next one on the list, we have the delay. And this one's simply, now I have this set for 2 seconds, and I'm going to turn the button on, blink, and then turn the button off. There we go. Like I said, whatever action you put through it with the signal, it just basically delays it by 2 seconds. So turn it on, it waits 2 seconds, and then passes on the signal. You turn it off, it waits 2 seconds, again, changes the state. And that's pretty straightforward. Now, the up-down counter. Now remember, we have the sensitivities are all different. This is like a 10, 25, 50, and 100% sensitivities. And you can see, I just barely tapped it, and you have the numbers. Tap it again. 1, 25, 50, and 0.1. And if I just hold it, you can see, takes that one a while. We go the other direction. -1, 1, 1, and finally 1. So, yeah, so the sensitivity makes a difference on how fast it climbs and such. So, yeah, it's a pretty straightforward thing, so, yeah. Alright, so, yeah, we went through these blocks, and like I said, these are blocks you can't use exactly like this. They're not available in the microcontroller, but you can replicate most of them to some degree in the microcontroller. The one that is kind of like an honorable mention type of scenario is the up-down counter. There is an up-down counter, but it works differently. The same overall perspective still works the same, but here's the differences that you're looking at with these. They have their own individual advantages, disadvantages, and yeah. So, and like I mentioned, these three right here, the exponent, the inverter, and the trig can be done with the function block. And even the delay one you can kind of mimic with, you know, with the capacitor or the blinker and or blinker. So yeah. Alright. Yeah. So hope you enjoyed what you watched. Hope you like what you saw. If you did, you know the deal, you know the spiel. This is Arcades signing out. Have yourself a good day. Whee!